Hello everybody, Willie Myatt from Jazzedge, and welcome to the final lesson in my Quick Win Standards course. All right, today we're going to be wrapping up Q&A on Blue Moon and also answering any questions that you might have about Quick Win Standards, Jazzedge, piano in general. All right, so let's get started. First of all, if you are a member of Jazzedge and you want the music, just go ahead into the Quick Win Standards course. You can see all of the sheet music for the lessons that we did in this course over the summer. If you're not a member, just go back to jazzdge.com, and now is a great time to sign up. Cut a couple of different options. You could do annual billing or monthly billing. And there's also the no bowl piano option as well, which no bowl piano is a smaller subset of lessons from the full Jazzedge site. The full Jazzedge site has about 720 hours of content, and the no bowl piano takes about 120 hours of content out of there, and that's the no bowl piano membership. So about 1/5 the size of Jazzedge. All right, so questions. If you have questions, you're on Zoom, just go ahead and hit the Q&A button there and ask your question. If you're on YouTube, you can go ahead and submit your question via chat. I will stay on as long as there are questions. If there are no questions, then we will wrap up, and I will wish you a good weekend. All right, so let's, while I'm waiting for questions, let's kind of review what it is we've covered. We've done quite a bit here. We've learned these 6 tunes, Blueberry Hill, we've only just begun. Dock of the Bay, Just the Way You Are, Bye Blackbird, and then we just finally finished up with Blue Moon. We've also worked in multiple different styles, from ballads to rock to, more of like a stride kind of, feel, and then even a jazz feel as well, all right? So hopefully what you've noticed in this Quick Win Standards course, my goal for the course and what I was trying to get you to see is how you could spin up and create arrangements quickly, and how you utilize these simple ideas and then stack on other layers once you master that simple idea. Let's talk about that for 1 second. So perhaps the most easiest thing that you can do to create an arrangement of a song is start by playing the melody in the right hand and then just doing octaves or single note in the left hand. I've showed you that a couple of different times now in the course. So that's the easiest way to get started. The main thing is, if you're going to play the melody, you have to make sure that you know how to play the melody well, right? And oftentimes, unfortunately, students will get into trying to do a full arrangement and they'll find that the melody is not that strong. So the melody has to be really strong to begin with. So I would always suggest start there. Do the melody strong. Then you can add on like a single note left hand. After that, then we can start to add on shells. And the shells are where we can start to fill out that chord harmony using the root and the 7th, the root and 3rd, root 3, 7. There's many different chord shell options available to you. Then from there, we can start to break up those shells and do some other things like bass lines or oompahs, and we've talked about some of that. And then we can also then start to add in notes underneath the melody like we did in Blue Moon to really start to get that big, full sound. All right, so that's the truncated version of how you would spin up an arrangement quickly. All right, so let's go on to questions here. I got some questions that have come in. Let's see. All right, first of all, let me take the question from Neil. Please explain the C sus in section A after the E flat. I'm assuming you're talking about, which tune is that, Neil? Let me know what song that is. I'm assuming you're talking about Blue Moon. So let's pull up the, Blue Moon. All right, let me pull up the sheet music for Blue Moon real quickly. And let's do... Well, I'll pull up the advanced arrangement. So, explain the C sus in section A after the E flat. What measure are we talking about here? Because there is no C sus in section A after the E flat. I see C minor, but I don't remember putting in a C sus anywhere. So let me know what measure that is. Also explain the A flat in the first line of the bridge. Okay, the bridge. Are you talking the A flat minor? Is this what you're talking about? The A flat minor? So yeah, I would need to know the measure that you're talking about in order for me to like really be able to help you, because I'm not sure what you're talking about. There is no C sus in this arrangement, and in the A flat after the bridge, I'm assuming that you're talking. Okay, so the bridge starts right here. The A flat, you're talking this, the A flat minor to the D flat to the G flat. This is interesting. So in the bridge, there's a 2-5 of 1, 2-5 of 1, right? So you can do a C7 there if you wanted to as well. Right, and then so it goes to a G flat major. And G flat major is a borrowed chord from minor. It's our flat 3 major. So it basically goes into this borrowed chord from minor just for a minute. And then at this point, a lot of times what would happen is it would be C minor. Sorry. And then this is a interpolated 2-5, C minor to F7, F minor to B flat 7. F minor to B flat 7 is our 2-5 going back to the 1 chord. The C minor to the F, right, is what we call an interpolated 2-5. And an interpolated 2-5 basically goes from the 6 minor, right, to the 5-7 of 5, F7, okay, or the 2-7, however you want to think about it, right? But there's a 2-5 there, and then that dominant chord, the F7, becomes the new minor chord, which is the 2 minor, and then it goes to 5. So you can think of it as like 6 to 2, 2 to 5 to 1, right? And you could go. So the C minor doesn't have to be minor. It could also be a dominant 7th as well, all right? All right, well, Neil, you're going to have to give me more in order for me to be able to help you, because I don't see any C sus in here, so I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. All right, moving on. Audrey. Question for Blue Moon. I measured 23 to 24, thank you, F7 to F minor. Since I'm playing shells, is it the same notes and they don't sound different, so the second F minor sounds a bit off. Okay, yeah, also, what measure should I end the song on? Okay, so again, when you're doing this right in here, okay, so when you're doing shells, okay, let me make this a little bit bigger here. All right, let's fix this up. Okay, so these two measures right here. Now, if you're doing shells. All right, so when you play that F and you do it twice like that, yes, the F7 and the F minor are going to share exactly the same chord shell because the 7th is the flatted 7th. And you're not going to get any difference in chord sound because there's no 3rd in there. So the way to counteract that is add the 3rd in the right hand. Now this is probably going to be too much of a stretch for you, right? That might be a little bit much of a stretch. And if that's the case, then what you could do is see what I did there? Come up to F minor there, and then go to B flat 7. So, right? So again, on this B flat, you could replace the B flat with a C minor 7, which is a pretty nice jazz reharmonization to do. I kept the B flat there because, again, this is what was written in the real book, and it's not that the B flat is bad. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I kind of like the sound. I think the B flat has kind of that nice old jazz tune kind of flavor to it. So sometimes what happens is in modern jazz, over the past few decades, modern, not necessarily like in the past 10 years, we changed our harmony so that rather than just playing things like this where it's B flat, right? We're playing B flat, just playing the 5 chord. We see the 5 going to this F7, the 5-7 of 5, right? And then interpolating. So one way of looking at this is like the 5 chord to the 5 of 5, back to the 5 chord. It's kind of like what's going on here. Right? It's kind of the sound that's going on, that more old-timey jazzed sound. So what we've started to do is we've started to change this around. So now there's a 2-5 in there, right? And then we can change that B flat so that then we have a 2-5 here as well, and that creates that whole interpolated 2-5 sound, right? So that interpolated 2-5 is kind of like a little bit more of a modern sound. Now, you might not want to do that, right? You might not like that modern kind of sound. You might be like, I just like the B flat as it is. That's fine, all right? Or you might say, I kind of like the C minor sound. So, you try both for measure 21. C minor, F7, F minor. Now you also notice in this case, see how I kept the shell the same, but I'm bringing in the thirds over here in the right hand. So A flat, D flat, G flat, and then C minor. Okay, now you might say, wait a second, C minor, there's no third in there. Yeah, I know, there's no third in there. I'm still conceptualizing it as C minor. You could add the third if you want. You can do that, right? I kind of like adding in the 11th there because that's kind of a nice open sound, okay? But if you wanted to you could do the C minor like this. There's your 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, that'd be fine. This is kind of cool too. You could add some tension in there if you wanted to. See the 3rd up in there for the F minor? All right, so yeah, I like the B flat. It's the double F7 that sounds strange. Yep. So then, if you like the B flat, add the 3rd there to get the F7 sound. And then when you come up here, you have the 3rd up here. All right. So now you get the dominant to minor sound. Now remember that this is an important lesson that I learned when I was studying with Fred Hirsch in New York. And that is that when you're doing re-harmonizations and you're trying to figure out, like, let's take this for example here. Like, we're trying to figure out, all right, do I like that C minor 7 to F7 sound, or do I like the, this right here? Do I like the C minor 7 to F7 to F minor to B flat? Well, let me try it out. And then you might try and you might be like, like play something like that and be like, you might be like, no, I don't like that. All right, so the lesson that I learned is don't throw the harmony out because it might very well be the chord voicing. And what that means is that depending on how you voice the chord, and remember, voicing the chord means how you're arranging the notes of the chord. So in this case, I'm voicing it with this 2nd down there, the 9th down there, right? You can see I got a big stretch going on, but there's a lot of like muddiness down there, right? So my voicing is not really very good here, is it? It doesn't make the C minor 7 chord sound very good. So if I am listening to this and I say, oh, this doesn't sound good, well, it's not because of the chord. It's not because of the chord harmony. And what I mean is, it's not that to say that the C minor to F7 doesn't work. It just means that I voiced it improperly. So it means I got to kind of change that voicing around. So I bring that up because it's really important that when you're playing this stuff and you're playing certain chords or certain harmony and you might reharmonize, make sure that you're not just throwing away your reharmonization or throwing away the harmony that's written saying, no, that's wrong, I'm going to play something else, because it might very well just be the way that you're voicing the chords, okay? So always think about that. So in this case, like that would be perfectly fine. C minor, F7, F minor. You know, the other thing we could do is we could start to change this around, right? Rather than B flat 7, we know we're going back to E flat, right? So what about going to E7? E7 sounds great, right? The E7 chord sounds great. Root 3, 7, 9, and then the B flat is the sharp 11. Okay? So we can, try changing that harmony around, and when we change the harmony around, again, we have to like be listening and say, okay, yeah, that sounds great, but if I were to do something like, I don't know, like that for my E7 chord, yeah, that doesn't sound very good. And if at first blush we say, oh no, E7 doesn't work, we would be wrong. It does work. That particular voicing is just not a great voicing, okay? All right, let's go over to YouTube and see if we've got any questions here on YouTube. No, nothing on YouTube. If you have any questions, go ahead and write in. Neil said, sorry, I was taking notes because I didn't have the sheet music. The A flat is in the third measure, I think. Okay, so the A flat is in the third measure. So this is the third measure, but I'm still not understanding what you mean by the A flat, okay? So again, this is probably something like that would be a good question. And let me just remind you guys about my coaching, okay? So if you're a member of Jazzedge, you get to join me in coaching twice a week. So if you have questions on, the music that you're working on, you can always ask me during coaching. We can load it up, and then you can, get it all recorded and whatnot. So you have these opportunities to interact with me live throughout the week. Twice a week for coaching, right? So it's a very, very powerful way for you to really be able to get better at your piano playing. Because the reality is this, it's extremely helpful to have somebody there, a teacher there, that can help direct you and guide you, right? So if you're practicing and you don't know what to practice or you want some feedback on your practice, well, you really want a human being to be able to do that. I know there's software and all of this stuff. There's, programs where it's like, you go ahead and play and you follow along and it tells you if the note is right or wrong. But the reality is that they really don't get the nuances. And if you really want to test it, go ahead and see how it captures rhythmically and to see how much room for error there is rhythmically. So unfortunately what ends up happening is students are using this kind of stuff like software and whatnot playing, and they're like, take something simple like Ode to Joy. Right, that's steady. But then you do it with the software and you could be like, and I see that kind of stuff a lot, especially with the software stuff. In fact, my daughter, Annika, just downloaded one of those software, like piano things. I've been teaching her piano, and she likes to just kind of like fool around with stuff. And that's exactly what I just saw, So this just happened actually last week. So the technology is really good, but it's not quite there. And that's why you really want a real teacher to be listening to what it is you're doing, because then they can really help you not only with those the nuts and bolts of like, okay, you're not playing the right notes or the rhythm is off, but there's also so many things that you can't get without a live teacher. Like how is software or through email, how is anyone going to be able to tell you about your posture, right? You might be playing like this, and guess what? If you keep doing that, you're going to hurt yourself until you won't be able to play anymore. So I really encourage all of you to check out that live coaching. And that's part of that Jazzedge membership, okay? Oh yeah, Audrey wanted to know, how does the song end? All right, let's go through that, and if we don't have any other questions, then we will wrap up with that. Let me give you a couple of different endings, okay? First of all, you can take a look at my Jazz and Blues Made Easy course, or lesson rather, Jazz and Blues Made Easy. In that lesson, I go through a bunch of different endings, like the bassy ending. I think I do like the Duke Ellington. You know, that ending. You know, the Shirley Horn ending. You know, that bass, the bassy ending, all of that kind of stuff. So you can utilize any of those types of things as well. So when let me pull this back a little bit so we have the last couple of measures here. All right. So I'll do this, just so we have the chords. So we have from measure 25, oops. So the easiest ending would be going from measure 29 here. So measure 30. Could do that, all right? So that would be fine. In order to do that, in which you just end on this one chord, which you would be ending right here, all right? Then you just want to make sure that you retard into that ending. So you want to do this. Right? You wouldn't want to end the song like that. It sounds a bit abrupt. So you want to retard this measure right here. Right, so you see how I kind of pull that back rhythmically, and then I can kind of end on that E flat, and I just hold the E flat out. All right, so that's one ending. That's probably the easiest ending for everyone to be able to get. Before I show you the other endings, I want to just remind you, when you see this at the end of a jazz song, and you're going to see it on hundreds of jazz lead sheets, you're going to see it's ending on this one chord, but then you see these other chords. This is what's called your turnaround. And your turnaround leads you back to the beginning of the song. By right, I should have a repeat sign here, you know, and go back to the beginning of the song. So this turnaround is what leads you back to that beginning, but you do not play the turnaround when you're going to end the song. Otherwise, you get to the end, like from measure 29 again. And it's like, what? And you obviously wouldn't end the song there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix the sheet music on this advanced arrangement for you guys. I'll put the repeat sign in there. And I'll also put in a fermata right here. The fermata is just another visual way to be able to see, like, oh, okay. So that means that's where I end, all right? All right, so that's the simple ending. So another ending. Something like that, okay? And that ending is written out in that Jazz and Blues Made Easy lesson. You would have to transpose it to E flat, but it's something that I would want you to work on transposing. It's not that difficult. There it is. I'm only going to play it once for you, though, okay? Because I want you to really kind of take a look at that lesson and take a look at those endings, and then bring that into this song, okay? So I want you to actually learn it rather than me just, okay, here it is. Now you go ahead and play it note for note. I want you to understand what it is that you're doing. So there's that ending. Another ending that I kind of like is also, you know, just kind of like playing around with that turnaround. So you could go... And then from here, you could... you could kind of fade it out like that, and you know, you could put a retard in there as well. Basically what I'm doing is the E flat, to the C minor, to the F minor, to the B flat. And I could utilize this same oompa stuff going on right here. And then I can improvise around. I showed you on Tuesday how you could use that major pentatonic scale, throw in the flat third in there. Okay. There's your Shirley horn ending. Okay, that. Right, and again, that one is written out in that Jazz and Blues Made Easy. Basically, you're approaching the 5, and then you go down to the root. Right, so you can get that nice short button ending. So again, for measure 29, you're playing. Just keep going. So ditch the right hand, go back into oompas, get a little bit of improv. And then when you're ready, go to the B flat, hit the E flat, ba-bum-bum, and then there's your ending. So I go to E flat, I wait, ba-bum-bum, take a look at Jazz and Blues Made Easy, because then the sheet music, you'll see how rhythmically it works out. Okay? So you could do the Duke Ellington ending, you could do the bassy ending, you could do that Shirley horn ending, you could do that little turnaround. The other thing I like to do is I like moving down from sharp 4. So E flat, A minor 7 flat 5, A flat 7, G minor 7 flat 5, C7 with a sharp 9 if you want, F minor, B flat, and then to E flat. Or you could do E7. Now another thing that you could do, right? This gets a little bit advanced, okay? And this is something that Audrey would probably want to talk about a little bit more in coaching as well. I can kind of coach you through it, pardon the pun. Is moving into a different style. So you see, I can kind of go in. And kind of go into a bossa nova style there. It's kind of interesting as well. And then you could do all of these other reharms as well. So you could do like, something like this. So there I went E flat, G flat, B, E. Okay, and this is E flat, G flat, B, E. You see the. Okay, so 1, flat 3, flat 6, flat 2, and then down to 1. Okay, and these are all major chords, and then ending on the 1. Okay. The other thing you could do is you could try going. So I don't want to give you too much because, it can just overwhelm you with too many choices and then you end up deciding nothing. So I would take a look at the Jazz and Blues Made Easy, take a look at some of those endings in there. That's a great place to start, right? Try bringing in some of those endings. And the reason that I recommend those is those are like stock endings that especially as you're learning and going, you might end up playing in a jam session at some point, with some other musicians in a live setting, and they might do that bassy ending or the Duke Ellington ending, and then you want to make sure that you really know that and know that in more than just the key of C. So that's why I suggest really that's the place I would go. Take a look at that lesson first, specifically just for those endings, learn those endings, transpose it into the key of E flat, and then also you can use those same endings on some of the other tunes like Bye Bye Blackbird, Blueberry Hill, all of that stuff, okay? All right. Let's see. Santo. Willie, thanks for developing this format. Using the standards for people my age works perfectly. My standards book opens many concepts for me to explore. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, standards are a great place to learn. And, great for several reasons. Number one, learning a tune like Blue Moon, a lot of people know Blue Moon. And if they don't know it, even if they're like, in their 20s saying like, I don't know Blue Moon, because I mean, this song is, pretty, has some years behind it. I don't know exactly when it came out, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was like in the 40s or 50s. So if you're in your 20s, this isn't popular music for you. But this is the kind of stuff that you see in movies and TV shows all the time. I've heard Blue Moon in at least a couple of movies, so it's in the popular culture. That's why these are standards, okay? So for one reason, that's great. Like you get some of these tunes that are pretty, common tunes that most people are going to know. And if you really take a look at these songs that we worked on in this series, Blueberry Hill, right? I mean, like we've heard that one before. We've only just begun. That one might be a little bit more esoteric. Dock of the Bay, Just the Way You Are, Bye Bye Blackbird. These are all pretty common tunes. I do my air quotes because, again, if you're in your 20s, you might not know these tunes, but they do show up in popular culture quite a bit. And you've probably heard them, if even like in a movie and there's some like background, band playing and they're playing, they're playing Bye Bye Blackbird, right? A lot of times when you're watching movies, they're not playing Pink in the background, right? Or Halsey stuff, or Britney Spears or Justin Bieber or whoever it is. A lot of times you don't find a lot of that type of pop music in movies. You'll find a lot of these standards. So, not to say that it's always that case, but I think you know what I mean. Like, you'll find a lot of these standards, So, it's great to learn them for that reason. But then also, the standards are a great vehicle for you to practice your harmony, your chords, your voicings, your improvisation. I did a course on how to improvise over standards, and a really, really important course, and I'm going to be adding on to it more with my new improvisation course that's coming out this fall, which I'm really excited about. And if you want to make sure that you know about it, just make sure that you're on my email list. Just go back to jazzedge.com and then do the piano strength assessment, and you'll get onto my email list, because that this course that I'm going to do on improvisation, I'm keeping it under wraps right now, like what I'm calling it, is really like 20 years of online teaching and then 35 years of actual teaching. Actually like 32 years of actual teaching. I really started teaching, believe it or not, when I was 15. I had my first student and then went on from there. But the improvisation is such an important part of music, especially jazz music. And I really suggest, no matter what discipline or style you're interested in, you really want to learn to improvise, okay, at some level. So that's really my course that's going to be coming out is really the I'm viewing it as like kind of like the Bible of improvisation. That's like kind of how I'm approaching it, and really trying to make it so that it steps you through improvisation. It's going to be multiple levels, starting right from the very beginning, but then we're going to get back up to our improv over standards. And it's going to be a different format in that the practice, the learning, and all of it is just all going to be wrapped up into this one lesson. So I think you really be excited to work through it. There will be one level that's going to be available for my no bow piano students, but then all of the other levels after that are going to be my Jazzedge students only. So if you're interested in that, you could sign up for a Jazzedge membership now, and then you would get access to it once it goes live. All right, so anyway, I don't see... Black Bishop asked, is that a jazz stride? Yeah, so if I did... That's jazz stride, okay? So, and a lot of what I'm doing, I am adding a little bit more, okay, in full disclosure, okay? But you'll notice that what I'm doing a lot of, like that stride pattern down here, right? It's exactly what I wrote in here. The root, and then the fifth and the sixth, fifth and seventh, fifth and seventh, right? So, all right, now the thing that I'm doing is I brought in the octaves. I talked about that on Tuesday, right? Yeah, you can do that. It's kind of a nice sound. Doing some tremolos as well. But you'll notice how I'm bringing in notes of the chord underneath the melody, and that's what's going on in this arrangement. And that is really the power of and then that's just right there. I mean, I haven't worked out an arrangement for this tune. I really haven't practiced this tune. This is like me just like kind of stepping into this right now and just kind of playing something quick. And you'll hear that's a pretty nice, pretty good full sound. Now I could also... You know, I could do that kind of stuff where I'm bringing in more of the octaves and then going to my rootless chords. Some of that you might need to work out, obviously, a little bit more because it's more of a movement in the left hand. But it adds a little bit more, but it's not like it changes it dramatically. So my point is these simple arranging techniques of like using shells and these broken oompa shells in the left hand, throwing in some notes underneath the melody, you get a really nice sound just with this. And unfortunately, a lot of times I'll have students where like, you know, they want it. I want that stuff where I'm doing like these big chords, right? And then doing this, and they want to work on that thinking that somehow if they could just get that down, it's going to change their whole playing. And because they're like, no, I don't like the shell stuff, that's too thin. But the reality is when they try to do the shells like that, they can't do it steady. And my point is, if you learn these accompaniment patterns and you know how to do them steady with good rhythm and good feel, right? So you'll see that if you could play them with good rhythm and play them steady, it sounds darn good, okay? And then you can always go from there and add on. But just make sure that you could do that first. I really have to drive that point home because, like, I know, I'm just like everyone else. Like, you know, we see the next shiny thing and like, oh, I want to do that. And it's like, yeah, you think like that's you know, what you need in order to get that big sound. And I'm here to tell you that really, just take a breath, step back for a second, focus on some of that simple stuff and really mastering that simple stuff. Again, like the melody. You know, how many times like, you know, students want to like get into it and they don't really know how to play the melody. Well, if you don't know how to play the melody, then you better make darn sure that you're going to sing it, okay? And if you're going to sing it, that's the other question I get a lot. It's like, you know, well, it's so different. Like, what do I do if I'm going to sing? I'm not going to play the melody. Then you don't play the melody, all right? You just do chords in the right hand. Blue moon, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. I don't know the lyrics, that's fine, right? And I'm not a singer either. But see how I'm just playing the chords in the right hand while doing that oompa in the left hand, and that's where I would sing over the top of it, all right? So it's really not radically different than what I already have here. The only thing that's different is I'm not playing the notes in the melody. I'm still playing the notes of the chord, though, okay? All right, so that's it for me. Thank you all very much for joining me. So like I said, check out the course. It is Quick Win Standards. We are now at the end of this course, but got a new course coming out this fall on improvisation. If you're interested in that and you'd like to join me on that, please be sure to become a member of Jazzedge. And what you want to do is just go back to jazz.how. Sign up for a free trial. There's plenty of free lessons to take a look at. So if you're not already at least a free member of Jazzedge, I definitely suggest take a look at it. You got